Those so-called notable orthodox sects are too despicable. How could they take advantage of others' difficulties? Let me go out and slaughter them all. Third senior brother, don't be reckless and fall for their tricks. Fifth junior sister is right. We must not panic right now. Even if Master cannot fight, they can't cause too much trouble with the four of us here. But the top 10 orthodox experts of the nascent divinity tribulation realm are all here. Besides Master's condition. Be quiet, all of you. Can't you see Master is resting? Lu Zhou heard a fierce quarrel as he slowly opened his eyes. Confused memories stabbed into his mind like tens of millions of needles while fragmented images were being rapidly woven in his head. Where is this? What happened to me? Fragments of memory washed him over. Wait, what? I've become Tiandao, the evil patriarch. Lu Zhou looked at everything in front of him in surprise. A gazebo, golden court mountain, 4 villainous disciples and tens of thousands of orthodox cultivators at the foot of the mountain. Meanwhile, memories continued to come to him. In his life, Tiandao had taken in 9 disciples, who were all great villains holding sway in different regions and known for creating trouble everywhere. His eldest disciple, Yu Zhenghai, had founded a sect after betraying him and was now the sect leader of the notorious Nether sect, which was known as the #1 evil sect of Great Yin. His second disciple, Yu Shangrong, was good at the sword. Now he had become the fearsome sword devil and was challenging experts everywhere and killing anyone at the slightest disagreement. His third, fourth, and fifth disciples went out to cause trouble from time to time, but they fortunately did not leave Golden Court Mountain. His sixth disciple, Yi Tianqin, was the palace master of the derived Moon Palace, the leader supported by many female cultivators and nicknamed Jadeface Shura. His seventh disciple, Si Wuya, had an information network that covered the whole world and was a thoughtful and scheming villain. He once started a war with the strategy of sowing dissension, causing numerous casualties and untold sufferings. His eighth disciple, Zhu Honggong, earned the title of Evil King only a few years after leaving the mountain. His ninth disciple, Xia Yuaner, was the latest to join his sect, and also his favorite disciple as well as the only disciple who still had some conscience. She stayed on the mountain all the time as well. Unfortunately, Tiandao had lived for nearly 1,000 years, which was almost the limit of a cultivator's lifespan. As he grew older, his control over his 9 disciples declined, and so did his deterrence over them. Eventually, 5 of them betrayed him, posing a serious challenge to his authority. A month ago, the top 10 orthodox experts set a trap and jointly attacked the evil patriarch. Tiandao fought against 10 experts alone, and the battle ended in a draw. Now, the experts of the orthodox sects were at the foot of the mountain, getting ready to launch an attack. Golden Court Mountain was facing an unprecedented crisis. Lu Zhou did not know whether to laugh or cry. As he tried to get up, he sat back down and nearly fell to the ground. His body felt empty and weak. Master seems to be awake. Master! The 4 disciples, who had been waiting for a long time outside the gazebo, filed in and bowed to Lu Zhou. The latter glanced at the 4 people in front of him and cleared his throat. He did not speak. The disciples in front of him were all evil villains, and the betrayal of the other 5 disciples was a wake-up call for him. How do you feel, Master? His third disciple, Duamu Xing, asked with concern. I'm fine. The faces of the 4 disciples lit up. Master, the experts of the orthodox sects are at the foot of the mountain now. I'm worried that it won't take them too long to break the defensive shield, said Mingshi, his 4th disciple. Lu Zhou forced himself to calm down. At this moment, he had no other choice but to accept Tiandao's memory and body completely. Why don't I go out and ask eldest senior brother to come back and help? Considering his relationship with Master, he should not sit by idly. He is now the sect leader of the Nether sect, with thousands of minions under him. Or maybe 7th junior brother, he's a witty man. Master! Shut up! Lu Zhou interrupted them. Calm down, I can't panic. No matter what, I'm the master of these villains. I can't expose the fact that my cultivation base is gone. Otherwise, I will become a piece of meat on a chopping board, and these 4 disciples will kill me first before those orthodox cultivators outside do. Golden Court Mountain's shield is strong enough to hold on for some time. What are you panicking about? Lu Zhou rebuked. The 4 disciples blushed with shame as they bowed their heads and dared not speak another word. Old third, what did you say just now? Lu Zhou asked in the same tone as Tiandao. As an old freak who had lived for 1,000 years, Tiandao's mental state far exceeded that of others. But Lu Zhou was a fast learner, and as their memories had merged, as long as he just imitated for a while and did not muck up, they would not find out anything unusual. Master, I'd like to ask eldest senior brother to come back and help, said Duamusheng. When he cupped his fist and bowed his head, he stole a glance at Lu Zhou. Lu Zhou sighed as he shook his head and said, I was jointly attacked by 10 experts and barely ended the battle in a draw. Do you think no one is behind this? Duamusheng's expression changed slightly. Master, do you mean eldest senior brother set you up behind your back? Ji Tiandao had run wild in the world for many years and had never had such an accident. As he grew older, his strength declined, and he became less of a deterrent. Even so, it was not easy to deal with him. Only someone who knew everything about him could set such a perfect trap. The eldest disciple, Yu Zhenghai, knew his master best, and Si Wuya was good at calculation, so both of them were suspected. The fourth disciple, Ming Shiyin, cursed, these ungrateful **RDS. They not only betrayed Golden Court Mountain, but also dared to set master up. If it weren't for the shield, I bet they would be besieging the mountain now as well. Enough! At the shout, everyone fell silent at once. Lu Zhou's voice sounded obviously displeased as he said, Do you think I don't know what you are thinking? You want me to die, don't you? Ah? The 4 disciples dropped to their knees immediately and said in unison, This disciple dares not. Lu Zhou glanced at them as he snorted and said, You are all experts of the divine court realm, and perhaps you will step into the nascent divinity tribulation realm in just a few years like your eldest and second senior brothers. By then can I, as your master, still be able to control you. He who teaches me for a day is my father for life. We will never betray master. The 4 disciples bowed. Lu Zhou took a deep breath. Although he was mentally prepared, he was still a little nervous when facing such a situation. Leave me. I have my own plan to drive back the enemies. I understand. The 4 disciples retreated obediently. Play my ass, I just want to be quiet, that's all. Lu Zhou finally felt relieved, and he found that at some point in time, his back had broken out in a cold sweat. I need to calm down. But how can I calm down in the face of 4 ungrateful disciples, who may jump over and attack me at any time, and thousands of so-called orthodox cultivators out there? Ji Tiandao, what sin have you committed that I have to clean up the mess for you? As if committing sins yourself is not enough, why did you cultivate so many villainous disciples? Damn you! You really deserve to die. What should I do now to handle internal and external troubles, plus an old body that can hardly move? Is there any dimension traveler who is unluckier than me? Ding! Task completed. Time taken, 1,000 years. Complete 9/9 of the task of inheriting and teaching. The merit system is officially activated. Lu Zhou's heart trembled. Here comes the cheat. He suddenly understood why Ji Tiandao had cultivated 9 villainous disciples. Unfortunately, the hard work of his whole life was only to pave the way for others. It was 1,000 years of hard work. The system brought up the menu, and a pale blue interface appeared in front of Lu Zhou's eyes. Name, Ji Tiandao. Race, human. Cultivation base, the 9th tier of body tempering. Merit points, -100,000 can be used to exchange life force, lucky draw, etc. Remaining life, 3 days. Items, none. Cultivation techniques, none. Other functions, lucky draw, shopping mall. -100,000. Lu Zhou widened his eyes and thought, seriously? -100,000 merit points? I can put up with the fact that you sent me into the body of an old man, but what is this? And what is going on with the remaining 3 days of life? Reassessing. Wrong information corrected. Ji Tiandao is now changed to Lu Zhou. Ding! A prerequisite task of the primary mission is triggered. Drive back the enemies. Complete the prerequisite task and correct yourself, then the merit points will be zeroed. Detected that the host is too weak. A novice gift pack is awarded. Do you want to open it? The series of prompts made Lu Zhou nod in satisfaction. That was more like it. He could also understand the prerequisite task given by the system. After all, what Ji Tiandao did all his life were notorious deeds. But the system was fairly reasonable. It knew this old body was too weak, so it gave him a novice gift pack. Open it. Ding! You've received 1x reversal card, which can give you some life force. You've received 3x peak form cards, which will give you 30 minutes of Ji Tiandao's peak form. You've received 5x critical block cards, which can block 5 fatal strikes for the host. These things are not bad. Lu Zhou looked at his personal menu again. Name, Lu Zhou. Race, human. Cultivation base, The 9th tier of body tempering. Merit points, minus 100,000, will be zeroed if the prerequisite task is completed. Remaining life, 2 days and 23 hours. Items, 3x Jietiandao peak form card, 5x critical block card, passive, 1x reversal card. Cultivation techniques, none. When he saw that his cultivation base was at the 9th tier of body tempering, Lu Zhou shook his head helplessly. Unfortunately, Jietiandao's cultivation base was gone. Apart from being old, the body was only left with the strength of body tempering. Jietiandao's peak form cards? System, does it mean Jietiandao's peak form in his strongest period? The system did not answer. It looked like that was the case. 3 cards, that was an hour and a half. In a state when his strength and cultivation base had declined, Jietiandao could still draw with the top 10 experts, so it should not be difficult to beat them in his peak form. A reversal card that can give me some life force? This was exactly what he needed most now. Almost without thinking twice, Lu Zhou took out the reversal card, which shattered and turned into specks of light with just the thought, swirling around him. In that moment, he shuddered. The life force of the surrounding grass and trees seemed to have been drawn over as streams of energy rolled and poured through the mountains. Soon, streams of energy rapidly converged from all over the mountains and plains. His skin changed. His hair changed. His eyesight became clearer. His life force was restoring. Lu Zhou glanced at the menu. The field of remaining life was slowly increasing. The effect of a reversal card that could reverse life was amazing. It took a while for the feeling to gradually settle down. Meanwhile, not long after the 4 disciples arrived at the foot of the mountain, they felt the strong movement on the mountaintop. What a strong energy wave! Old Third exclaimed. I knew that Master had stronger skills that he had not taught us. Since the betrayal, Master always holds back a trick or two when teaching us. But, when I was closest to Master just now, I clearly felt that there was no energy fluctuation in his body. There are rumors in the cultivator world that Master had been injured. Don't be fooled by appearances. It's not difficult to conceal energy fluctuation. Judging from Master's performance just now, everything should be under his control. Little junior sister, Master doted on you the most. Do you know what technique this is? The other 3 disciples looked at the 9th disciple. How would I know Master is always so unfathomable? Little Yuanar mumbled. Just as the 4 of them were patrolling, they heard the voice of an orthodox cultivator from outside the shield. Listen up, the villains of Golden Court Mountain. You are surrounded. Quickly come out and face your death. The voice echoed over the mountain. The 9th disciple looked up and saw a chariot fly across the sky. It's Zhou Jifeng, the eldest disciple of the Heavenly Sword sect. It said that he just broke through into the Divine Court realm some time ago. He has just stepped into the Divine Court realm. If it were a one-on-one fight, he's not even worthy of being little junior sister's opponent. It's a pity that there are many of them. Among the 9 great villains of Golden Court Mountain, Xia Yuanar, who joined the sect the latest, had the weakest cultivation base. She was now at the Dao controlling stage of the Divine Court realm. These people are not a concern. The real trouble is the top 10 experts. They all have the strength of the nascent divinity tribulation realm. With no chance of getting eldest senior brother's help, I only hope that Master really has a plan to drive back the enemies, said the 3rd disciple, Duamu Xing, with his arms folded over his chest. The 4th disciple, Mingxirin, gave a sly smile and said, I know this is treacherous, but who can stop the 4 of us now if we want to flee? Duamu Xing, Zhao Yu, and little Yuan all paused. After a long silence, Duamu Xing said, how can I leave when Master hasn't given me a weapon? The 5th disciple, Zhao Yu, parted her red lips slightly as she chuckled and said, which is more important, your life or that broken weapon? The 9th disciple gave them a complicated look, and she could not help but say, Senior brothers, senior sister, do you really not want to fight alongside Master? How could you do this when Master had worked so hard to teach us cultivation techniques? Senior sister Zhao Yu lifted a hand and said, Little junior sister, you joined the sect the latest, so there are many things you don't know. Mingxirin snorted lightly and said, although Master taught us cultivation techniques, he also tortured us, didn't he? But we've become stronger because of that, right? Little Yuanar did not understand. You're too naive. Just look at the notoriety of Golden Court Mountain and the reputation of its 9 evil disciples. A crooked stick would have a crooked shadow. Disciples' character and behavior could be expected to resemble that of their master. In any case, this cannot be an excuse for betrayal, said little Yuana stubbornly. That made the other 3 shake their heads and sigh. Their master was bad-tempered and moody sometimes, and he treated disciples harshly. As for the departure of their eldest and second senior brothers, they did not know the reason, and their master never mentioned it either. Meanwhile, Lujo had been studying the system. After using the reversal card, he felt that his body was rejuvenated. Although it was still not as energetic as that of a young man, it was enough for him to move around. He rose to his feet and breathed as he performed a set of simple exercises. After getting familiar with his new body, he sighed, "It's still a little too old." In his previous life, no matter how he worked overtime and stayed up late, he felt at most 30 years old. He was not used to being so old all of a sudden. Fortunately, his remaining life was restored to 313 days. Lujo noticed that he could exchange cultivation techniques, weapons, and reversal cards in the shopping mall. It meant that he could have inverse growth. 313 days were far from enough. He wanted to return to a level where he could at least move normally. It felt really bad to look so old. Or maybe he could reverse to his youth? However, he did not have too many reversal cards at the moment. He could only consider that after solving the immediate crisis. He feared that no other dimension traveler was stuck in this kind of a situation. It's a pity that the gift items are too few. It seems that some brains are needed to solve the immediate crisis. Lujo kept pondering. A moment later, he slowly got up and walked out of the gazebo. The scorching sun was dazzling. Although Ji Tiandao's memory provided him with many references, when he saw it with his own eyes, he was still amazed by the clear blue sky. Boom! There was an explosion and the whole Golden Court Mountain shook. Lujo frowned slightly. Were the cultivators already impatient to break the shield? Boom! He looked up at the invisible shield. Golden Court Mountain was truly a treasured land. The powerful restriction was strengthened exponentially by the terrain, and it was very difficult to break even by experts of the nascent divinity tribulation realm. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In the blink of an eye, the 4 disciples came in front of him. They were taken aback when they saw Lujo standing straight. Master! 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 Greetings, Master. The last one to greet him was his 9th disciple, Xia Yuana. Lujo saw the smile on her comely face. Master, you seem to be getting younger, Yuana said with a smile. Come here. The scenes of Ji Tiandao doting on Xia Yuana emerged in Lujo's mind. He did not expect the old villain to have a gentle side. He lifted a big old hand and gently patted his 9th disciple on the forehead. You're still the nicest. Duamusheng, who stood aside, said, Master, they are trying to break the shield. Please let me fight them. I'll certainly slaughter them all. Lujo's glance crossed Duamusheng's eyes. The gaze made Duamusheng's heart tremble, and he swallowed as he lowered his head, not daring to look directly at the other again. I already have a plan to drive back the enemies. Come with me. Lujo said faintly. Understood. After regaining some life force, Lujo's legs became more agile. His 4 disciples followed respectfully behind him as he walked toward the outside of Golden Court Mountain. Outside of the mountain, thousands of cultivators lined up in dozens of small groups. Some stood on flying swords, some on chariots, and some on the ground. Various banners were waving in front of them: the Heavenly Sword Sect, the Dwelling Branch of the Confucian School, the Primal Sect of the Tao League. Work harder, everybody. The shield is not going to last for long. The villainous Patriarch of Golden Court Mountain must be seriously wounded, which is why he dares not to come out now. If it were in the past, Golden Court Mountain would have never suffered such humiliation in silence. Indeed, he must be too scared to come out and face us. Let's continue to challenge them to a fight. A chariot drifted through the sky, from which came ringing out a voice. Listen up, the villains of Golden Court Mountain. You are surrounded. Quickly come out and face your death. The voice echoed and sounded mighty, greatly boosting the morale of the orthodox cultivators. Meanwhile, the top 10 experts of the nascent divinity tribulation realm each sat in a chariot, waiting with their eyes closed for the shield to break. The old villain is here. Be careful. Suddenly, the cultivators' expressions changed and they quickly flew backward on their swords. Not daring to posture again, they simply landed and stood among the crowd. Right at that moment, the top 10 experts opened their eyes. However, the eldest disciple of the Heavenly Sword Sect, Zhou Jifeng, was very bold. He was the only one still floating and looking down from the sky, as if he were going to spearhead the attack. The cultivators' eyes were fixed on the entrance of Golden Court Mountain as a group of people walked over slowly, with Lu Zhou at the front and his 4 disciples following closely behind. They did not use any powerful divine abilities and just walked like ordinary people, but many cultivators dared not to even breathe too loudly. The white-haired old man was none other than the well-known villainous Patriarch, the master of the 9 notorious evil disciples. Just as he approached the shield, Lu Zhou stopped, which made his 4th disciple, Mingxirin, pause in surprise. Why doesn't he move on? Lu Zhou remained calm and collected. He knew it would arouse his villainous disciples' suspicion, but it did not matter. Once he drove back the enemies, they would naturally be brought to their heels. The sect leader of the Heavenly Sword sect, Luo Changfeng, was the first to speak. It's only been a month, and the Patriarch of Villains seems to be getting younger. His joke made the crowd burst into laughter. However, Lu Zhou paid no heed to it. You're a bold man, Luo Changfeng, he said indifferently. Stop pretending. You may be able to fool these few villainous disciples of yours, but you can't deceive us. It is meaningless to be pretentious. Surrender now, and the orthodox sects of the world will spare you a whole body, said Luo Changfeng. Floating in the sky, Zhou Jifeng suddenly said in a loud voice, the 4 of you should be the last 4 disciples of this old guy, right? The 9th disciple Yuano rolled her eyes and said, who else can we be? What an idiot. Zhou Jifeng glanced at the little girl. Anyhow, he was not angry as he went on. This old villain had been badly hurt, and it has not been easy for him to pretend until now. Here's a chance for you to give up evil and return to the good. Kill him together with us from the orthodox sections. Kill him. Kill him. Kill him. Tens of thousands of cultivators roared, their voices shaking the sky and echoing throughout the entire Golden Court Mountain. They are Fu * King Noisy, Master, please let me fight them. I can't wait to peel off the skin and break the bones of this arrogant boy. Mingxirin bowed and said. Mingxirin was a genuine expert at the Dao transforming stage of the Divine Court realm, stronger than those at the same level. Zhou Jifeng was no match for him at all. So the latter swallowed as he maneuvered his sword and moved a few meters back. He must be tired of living to fight in the vanguard against Golden Court Mountain. Lu Zhou raised a hand and said, there's no need. How could these orthodox sects give you a chance to fight them one-on-one? You are right, Master. Mingxirin nodded and said. With a charming smile, the 5th disciple Zhao Yu said sarcastically, a handsome boy, your flying sword looks amazing. If you manage to stay alive after receiving a single slap from me, I'll let you kill me. What do you think about that? You. Jifeng, step back. Yes. Luo Changfeng said, who doesn't know that all the 9 villainous disciples of Golden Court Mountain are experts of the Divine Court realm and above? I'm afraid that only villains like you would bully a junior. Lu Zhou did not speak but looked at them quietly. At that moment, Chang Jian of the Duanling branch said, today, the experts of the orthodox sects are joining hands to punish you. You villains have only yourself to blame for this. Good and evil must have their reward at last, so stop putting up meaningless resistance. I have my own judgment as to whether it is good or evil, right or wrong. Even if my disciples does something wrong, they can only be punished by me. It is not up to you to tell me what to do, said Lu Zhou faintly. Upon hearing that, Luo Changfeng and the others burst out laughing. You are really good at joking, old thing. By the time you punish them, the whole world will be completely over. Yu Xinghai's nether sect is swallowing other sects everywhere, but have you punished him? Yu Shangrong robbed tens of thousands of precious items from the secondary capital of Great Yin. Have you punished him? Let me ask you again, is it Yu Shangrong who abducted the princess of the western regions married to Great Yin? Yes. Is it because of Si Wuya's incitement that 30,000 cultivators died in Rombe? Yes. It is good for you to admit that. To teach without severity is the teacher's laziness. What else do you have to say? Over the years, his villainous disciples had indeed done a lot of evil. But, at this moment, these orthodox cultivators and him were enemies with different opinions. Lu Zhou glanced at Luo Changfeng and replied calmly, and then, don't you think what your evil sky pavilion has done is hated by both man and heaven? Luo Changfeng shook his head. Those who are not Arkin are sure to be of a different heart. Those from the western regions are not Arkin, and so is the case for those from Rombe, and yet you pity them. Your motive is execrable. You. Luo Changfeng was infuriated by Lu Zhou's remark. The other 9 experts also shook their heads, thinking that this old villain was hopeless. However, at that moment, the 4 disciples behind Lu Zhou looked a little surprised. Their master was not an eloquent man, and he always killed his opponent upon the slightest disagreement. But now he actually reasoned with these orthodox cultivators. It was a wonder for them. From the corner of his eyes, Mingxirin glanced at his master. Lu Zhou was standing inside the shield, and his aura and attitude were no different from before. However, he kept having a strange feeling about the latter, which he could not pinpoint exactly. Old villain, you should get out of the shield now if you have the guts. There's no point in pretending like this, said Changjian. In that case, I'll fight with the 10 of you again. The top 10 experts were stunned for a moment, and then they burst out laughing. How could Ji Tiandao, who was wounded right now, beat them when he had failed to do so in the battle that happened a month ago? Luo Changfeng said in a loud voice, old villain, I'll see how long you can pretend. Come out and fight me now. Lu Zhou looked at Luo Changfeng with a calm face. However, Ming Shiyin's eyebrows frowned before relaxing. With Master's temper, he would never do this. If he really had the ability to fight the 10 of them together, he would not have quarreled and reasoned with them. This only means one thing, Master is really injured. A hint of a smile brushed the corner of Ming Shiyin's mouth. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Lu Zhou walked out of the shield, standing against the wind and facing tens of thousands of cultivators. He had never seen such a grand scene in his life, and he would be lying if he said he was not nervous. Nonetheless, he had to stay calm. Well, show me what you can do, said Lu Zhou. Swoosh! Luo Changfeng flashed up in midair, and then his sword multiplied and began to spin rapidly like an umbrella. This is the unique skill of the Heavenly Sword sect called the Flash of Heavenly Sword. It can attack over 100 times in a flash. Even a peak expert of the nascent divinity tribulation realm dares not to take it head-on. The disciples of Heavenly Sword sect were very excited. This is sect leader's Flash of Heavenly Sword. The attack will show us his true colors. Even if he can take it, he can't change anything. This old villain is courting death himself. The eyes of thousands of cultivators were all focused on Lu Zhou. The stronger experts were trying to sense his energy fluctuation, wanting to find out his real strength. However, they found nothing, as if he were just an ordinary person. Luo Changfeng's Flash of Heavenly Sword began to gather power, and beams of sword light soon converged together. Master, little Yuano looked worried. Meanwhile, the other 3 villainous disciples were not as nervous as her, and instead they watched with great interest. Don't worry. Master is not going to get himself killed for nothing, said Ming Shiyin, the 4th disciple. Perhaps their master really had some trump cards. It was just as well to let these people test them out. Little Yuana had no trouble in learning her senior brothers' and sisters' intentions. She could tell that from their unconcealed expressions. But her master was facing the Heavenly Sword sect's strongest skill, which even a peak expert of the nascent divinity tribulation realm dared not to take head-on. It was obviously Luo Changfeng's trap. Meanwhile, Lu Zhou looked calm, but he was extremely nervous inside. He kept staring at the items on the menu, the peak form experience card and the critical block card, while paying close attention to the surroundings. When necessary, he knew that he must use the peak form experience card. Moreover, he also realized that his 4 villainous disciples were growing suspicious. Ding! A side quest is triggered. The will of others is not ours to see, make the villainous disciples show their true colors. Lu Zhou's face flickered when he saw the quest. He was facing enemies from the front and the rear. What a pathetic master he was. At that moment, Luo Changfeng's Flash of Heavenly Sword finished gathering power. Swoosh! 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 A whirlpool of sharp blades shot straight toward Lu Zhou, rolling up strong gusts of wind that blew at the thousands of cultivators, forcing them to narrow their eyes and veil their sights. Duck, master! Little Yuano was shocked. Duamusheng, Ming Shiyin, and Zhao Yu also watched with wide eyes, their faces looking worried. Even if their master were not injured, it would still be a little difficult for him to take the attack head-on. So why would he do that? You can't die right now, old thing. Duamusheng cried out reflexively as he exchanged a glance with Ming Shiyin and Zhao Yu, their eyebrows frowning. If the other died, those cultivation techniques and weapons would disappear with him. Swoosh! Duamusheng and Zhao Yu bolted over. Just as the hundreds of blades approached, the 3rd and 5th disciples set off huge waves, one heading toward their master and the other toward Luo Changfeng's blades. Oh! Lu Zhou frowned slightly. They are indeed villainous disciples. Are they worried that I will bring the treasures to my grave after I die? Master, retreat! The gust of wind sent out by Duamusheng with all his strength pushed the blades off their course by a little, sending them toward the Golden Court Mountain's shield. Even so, the remaining energy still shook Lu Zhou and made him feel sick. He immediately turned around and ran back into the shield in feigned panic. Zhao Yu's energy blast was to save her master, but as he stepped into the shield, it smashed on the protective barrier. Boom! Boom! The blast exploded on the invisible shield in midair like fireworks. Crack! Crack! In the blink of an eye, the shield of Golden Court Mountain cracked with lines spreading out everywhere. It would most likely not last for too long. Silence fell and all sights were restored. Lu Zhou looked up a little at the shield and sighed in his heart. The critical block card was not triggered and he still had 5 of them. In other words, no attack could harm him right now. However, the group of villainous disciples had ruined his plan. I knew this old villain was pretending. He ran really fast just now. I saw it too. What a shame. I didn't expect the formidable patriarch of villains to be reduced to this. That gave the tens of thousands of cultivators more confidence. Luo Changfeng flew forward as he looked down from the sky and said, "So, is this your trick? It has really opened my eyes." His attack had missed the target, but he was not bothered by it. As far as the people from the orthodox sects were concerned, it was meaningless for this group of villains to play any tricks. Luo Changfeng, you are so shameless. Do you want my master to stand unmoving like a practice target and let you hit with a full power attack? Do you take us all for fools? Zhao Yu said sarcastically with a smile. Zhao Yu, I was trading blows with your master, but you suddenly interfered even when he didn't say anything. Haha, it seems that his status as the patriarch of villains is no longer as respected as before, said Luo Changfeng. I can't believe that a formidable patriarch of villains ended up needing the protection of his villainous disciples. This will be a strange piece of news for the world. Lu Zhou paid no heed to their words, which were nothing but trash talk meant to mock him. They were a waste of time and totally meaningless. Instead, he glanced at the peak form experience cards once again. He had 3 of them, which would give him a total of 1.5 hours of peak time. In other words, once he used them, he had to fight and win the battle as quickly as possible. When Mengxirin saw his master's expression, he cupped his fist and said, Master, there's no need to waste your breath with them. With your mightiness, as long as you hold back the top 10 experts, the rest of them are just underlings you can let the 4 of us handle. Isn't that better? Lu Zhou frowned slightly and said in a deep voice, Are you doubting my decision? No, this disciple dares not. Lu Zhou had a deep understanding of pacifying the internal before resisting foreign aggression now. If he did not pacify this group of villainous disciples, he would have a hard time later on. The time of a peak form experience card was fixed, and once he used them all, he would fall into a crisis again. Duamusheng. Yes, master. How dare you? Lu Zhou's voice grew louder. What? Who allowed you to interfere in my affairs? Duamusheng's expression changed slightly. He hurried over and dropped to his knees as he said, I know it was wrong, but I was worried about Master's safety. The old fool Luo Changfeng is trying to trick Master into falling into his trap. Master must not fall for his tricks. In fact, many things were already very obvious, and all it took was for someone to rip the thin layer of paper apart. For the past month, Jitianda had been struggling and putting on airs. However, these disciples were no idiots, and some details had long made them suspicious. Lu Zhou was a dimension traveler and not Jitianda, so no matter how hard he tried to imitate, he could not get the essence of Jitianda's speech. At this moment, the group of villainous disciples had already realized that their master was pretending. Since he was pretending, there was no need for them to continue acting. At that moment, Mengxirin did not pretend to be afraid like Duamusheng. With a treacherous smile on his face, he said, You've been acting very hard, master. I think it's enough. Oh. Third senior brother, get up. And Mengxirin's attitude changed. Meanwhile, the respectful look on Duamusheng's face disappeared as he slowly rose to his feet. The 5th disciple Zhao Yu chuckled and said, Give up, master. As long as you give us all your cultivation techniques and weapons, we will definitely bring you away today, and you will always be our master. Little Yuano's eyes grew wide as she said, Senior brothers and sister, what are you doing? Outside the shield, Luo Changfeng and the others laughed wildly when they saw the villains fight among themselves. You may escape an untoward act of heaven, but never the evil of your own. This is karma. With such villainous disciples, you should have been mentally prepared for this. The 5 villainous disciples who betrayed you are the best examples. I think this old villain will not come to a good end even without us orthodox sects fighting him. The top 10 experts looked at each other and laughed. Lu Zhou was not afraid of being laughed at. For him, none of this mattered as long as he could resolve the immediate crisis. He nodded and his eyes moved from the faces of his 3rd, 4th and 5th disciple and finally stopped on his 9th disciple. What about you, Yuana? Master. Little Yuana hesitated. It doesn't matter, just say what you have to say. I've lived long enough to see all kinds of storms. When your eldest and 2nd senior brothers left Golden Court Mountain, they were much more determined than you. said Lu Zhou in a faint voice. Little Yuano went down on her knees. Master, this disciple dares not. Ding! You've completed the side quest. The will of others is not ours to see. The reward is the eye of truth, and the effect is permanent. That gave Lu Zhou a pause. Suddenly, special labels appeared in his eyes over the few villainous disciples in front of him. Duamu Xing, Divine Court Realm. Loyalty 23%, declining. Mingshi Yin, Divine Court Realm. Loyalty 15%, declining. Zhou Yu, Divine Court Realm. Loyalty 35%, declining. Si Yuaner, Divine Court Realm. Loyalty 60%, increasing. Hint: when a disciple's loyalty is below 0%, he or she will betray the sect and become an enemy. When loyalty is more than 80%, the disciple will not betray, while over 90% is absolute loyalty. The decline of the first 3 disciples' loyalty was within his expectation, but Lu Zhou was slightly surprised by the fact that little Yuano's loyalty was increasing. In this case, there is no need for me to continue pretending, said Lu Zhou deliberately. Yes, I did get hurt. His disciples' eyes gleamed. Meanwhile, the cultivators outside the shield were eager to rush into the shield and rip the old villain into pieces like a pack of savage wolves. Lu Zhou noticed that the loyalty of the first 3 disciples had reduced by 5%. But then, his tone changed suddenly. But, this doesn't mean you can lift your finger against me. Lu Zhou crushed a Ji Tiandao's peak form experience card. In a flash, his dried-up meridians, Dantian and Sea of Qi were filled to the maximum levels. With him at the center, a powerful blast rolled out in all directions. Ah! How is this possible? Duamu Xing, Mingshi Yin and Zhou Yu flew backward, each spitting out a mouthful of blood, while little Yuano's eyes grew wide as she stared incredulously at her master. Waves of powerful blast poured forth and shattered the shield, which was already on the verge of collapsing. In the blink of an eye, the shield disappeared. Tens of thousands of cultivators watched in astonishment, and the whole world fell silent. Isn't he hurt? How can he still emit such powerful blasts? I clearly saw him running back into the shield in panic. I have a bad feeling. Stop saying that, I can feel my legs shaking. The top 10 experts also stared angrily at Lu Zhou and looked incredulous. On the other hand, the latter took a deep breath and did not even look at his 3 villainous disciples. The feeling of peak form was really good. He felt as if everything was under his control, and everyone in front of him had become ants he could crush with just the flick of a finger. As soon as Duamu Xing and the other 2 disciples fell to the ground, they rolled over and knelt on both knees as they said in unison, "This disciple begs master's pardon." Blood trickled from the corners of their mouths and fell on the backs of their hands. Their fingers kept trembling and they did not dare to even breathe too loudly. Lu Zhou glared at them and lifted a hand. A powerful blast poured toward the 3 disciples like a huge wave. "You have disobeyed me, and you will be punished." Bam! 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 3 beams of golden light smashed onto the 3 disciples, causing them to vomit blood again. "I'll deal with you when I come back." Lu Zhou did not look at them in the eyes but glanced at the remaining time. He still had some 29 minutes. It did not take him too much time to teach the 3 disciples a lesson. Now, what was left for him to deal with were the tens of thousands of cultivators and the 10 experts of the nascent divinity tribulation realm. Staring at Luo Changfeng, who was in midair, Lu Zhou said, "Let me see how much stronger have you become in the past month." Boom! He pushed against the ground with a foot and propelled himself up into the air like a missile at the speed of lightning. As he flew upward, he cried out in a loud and clear voice, "Avatar, the 100 Tribulations Insight." An avatar with a height of more than 100 feet and a width of 20 feet appeared in the sky, surrounded by golden light. A golden lotus with 8 leaves could be seen spinning rapidly beneath it. At the sight of it, Luo Changfeng quickly moved backward with a look of shock on his face. "Stop him!" The other 9 experts flew into the air and produced their avatars as well. 10 avatars joined together to form a wall while the rest of the cultivators quickly retreated and hid behind them. Even so, many weaker cultivators were stunned and fell to the ground because they did not retreat in time, and some even died on the spot with blood gushing out of their 7 orifices. Heavens! I can't believe he used his strongest move right away. This is one of Ji Tiandao's strongest moves, the 8-leaf avatar of 100 Tribulations Insight. Don't panic. Although his 100 Tribulations Insight is powerful, it consumes a lot of energy. As long as we can withstand this attack, he will be finished. This was also what the top 10 experts thought. Led by Luo Changfeng, the 10 avatars were constantly resisting the corrosion of the 100 tribulations in sight. Everything within 100 miles was illuminated by the bright light from the 11 avatars. Wild beasts and birds fled in panic for their lives. After using the peak form experience card, all of Ji Tiandao's major skills appeared in Lu Zhou's mind. The avatar of 100 tribulations insight was one of his strongest skills. But why did he use it right away? Because it was an experience card that would disappear once the time was up. So he might as well use it without scruple. Since you like to use a sword, I'll use a sword too. Lu Zhou lifted his right hand. A blazing white light appeared between his index and middle fingers, forming a dazzling sword. Then energy swirled around the blade and converged into a sword beam. The imperfect divine intervention? Instinctively, Duamuxing looked up and his body trembled. After all, this move was one of the Divine One technique's strongest moves. The Divine One technique consisted of sword moves and spear moves. Duamuxing had always wanted to learn all of its sword moves, but it was too bad that Ji Tiandao refused to teach him the last move. He never thought he would see this move on such an occasion. Duamuxing was wrong, Mengshi was wrong, and Zhao Yu was wrong too. Their master could not only use his avatar of 100 tribulations insight with ease, but also the imperfect divine intervention. The move, of course, was also one of his strongest skills. More terrifyingly, under the influence of the avatar, the power of the imperfect divine intervention was multiplied. Luo Changfeng's eyes grew wide and his lips shivered as he said, "A retreat." Retreat? If we don't retreat now, all 10 of us will certainly be seriously wounded. Not only is this old villain not injured, but he is stronger than ever. Luo Changfeng said reluctantly. How did this happen? Chang Jin of the Duanling branch was full of doubts. They did not have such a hard time fighting Ji Tiandao a month ago, and they were sure that they had injured him during the battle. But now it seemed that they were also wrong. Lu Zhou floated in front of his avatar, looking as if both of them had merged into one. Then his imperfect divine intervention approached quietly, as if it had split the void. Swoosh! 10 avatars faded away at the same time as the top 10 experts moved back in the sky. And when they retreated, it was those weak cultivators hiding behind their avatars who suffered. In the next instant, the powerful sword beam fell from the sky and slashed through the crowd. The top 10 experts suddenly realized the seriousness of the problem. In the battle a month ago, Ji Tiandao had fought 10 of them alone with his avatar of 100 tribulations insight, and he did not use any other powerful moves. But this time, the old villain kept using ultimate skills as if he were putting up a desperate fight. Yet, what scared them even more was that he looked very relaxed. Yes, he was indeed very relaxed. Lu Zhou found an interesting phenomenon. The key to the peak experience card lay in the word peak. Whenever he used some energy, it would be filled to the maximum level instantly. The effect was truly worthy of its name, the peak form experience card. It was an amazing item. Lu Zhou decided that he needed to use them sparingly. After all, he only had 3 experience cards. In that case, he had to finish the battle as fast as possible. The imperfect divine intervention had slain hundreds of cultivators and scared the other weaklings out of their wits. Since the peak form was unlimited, Lu Zhou would not waste the opportunity. He began to spend his energy without scruple and kept killing nearby cultivators. After a brief moment, he glanced at the surroundings. All the nearby low-level cultivators had retreated. How could anyone else dare to stay here when even the top 10 experts had retreated? The crowd of cultivators scattered and fled in a fan shape. Lu Zhou was alone after all, and he did not know the skill to replicate himself, so he could not catch up with them all. He frowned slightly and set his target on the top 10 experts. Trying to flee? A pity that you are too slow. Lu Zhou moved like a bolt of lightning, leaving residual shadows in midair. Seeing that, his few villainous disciples were dumbfounded. Duamuxing looked frightened as he muttered, Master's mighty divine ability, soul chase. Third senior brother, what should we do now? Mengshi was a witty guy, but he was running out of ideas now and his eyelids twitched with panic. How do I know? Why don't we run away too? Zhao Yu put forward a bold suggestion. The 9th disciple quickly said, Senior brothers and sister, listen to me, just stay put. Master has the mighty divine ability, so you can't run away from him. A deep sense of despair welled up in their hearts. The reason that soul chase was a mighty divine ability was that it could catch up with the target in a very short time. Its only weakness was that it consumed a significant amount of energy. They were already surprised by the continual use of ultimate skills by their master, and they did not expect he could still use such a mighty divine ability. The villainous disciples could not understand why their master let the enemies insult him at the foot of the mountain and allowed their eldest senior brother and the others to betray him when he had such a mighty strength. Of course, they were not the only ones who could not understand it. You cannot catch old birds with chaff. It turns out that Master had been acting all the time and deliberately deceiving us. Could it be that Master is tired of playing with the previous routine and wants to change the pattern? The three disciples' minds were filled with various conjectures. However, instead of getting the right answer, they were horrified by their own guess. The moment Soul Chase was used, the 100 Tribulations Insight Avatar and Lu Zhou disappeared together. Meanwhile, Luo Changfeng flew in the sky, looking back over his shoulder from time to time. The cultivators of the orthodox sects had fled in panic like a herd of innocent sheep who just saw a savage wolf. Eh? I've been waiting for you for a while. Why did you fly here only now? In front of him floated a familiar figure. Luo Changfeng halted hastily and said, "Old villain? He's so fast." A cold sweat trickled down his back. Why is he chasing me instead of the others? He thought bitterly. It was as if his thoughts were read as clear as day, as Lu Zhou quipped, "Or where's your arrogance from just a while ago? You, don't push me too hard." Luo Changfeng glared at him. "What will you do if I push you too hard?" Fighting back his fear, Luo Changfeng continued, "You've used the mighty divine ability of the nascent divinity tribulation realm 3 times in a row, and if you continue, you will exhaust your energy. Do you think using Soul Chase is as simple as eating rice? The Avatar of 100 Tribulations Insight is also a mighty divine ability." He was only halfway through what he wanted to say when Lu Zhou appeared in front of him. In the blink of an eye, the familiar 100 Tribulations Insight Avatar also appeared behind him at the same time. There were only a handful of cultivators in the cultivation world who had 100 Tribulations Insight Avatars. A golden lotus was its unique symbol, and the number of leaves it had depended on the person's cultivation base. Jitionda was the only one who had an 8-leaved golden lotus. Moreover, the 8 golden leaves showed signs of splitting again, which meant the 8-leaf golden lotus would transform into a 9-leaf golden lotus, and then 10-leaf, which was the unique symbol of Thousand Realms whirling avatar. "I only know ultimate skills," Lu Zhou's voice drifted over. Luo Changfeng forgot to resist. He had used his avatar once already. The difference between a 7-leaf 100 Tribulations Insight and an 8-leaf one was tremendous. Moreover, he had also used the flash of Heavenly Sword. To get this far, he had done his best. So, how could he resist the old villain who kept using ultimate skills? "Stop!" Luo Changfeng raised a hand. "I'm sorry, I can't stop." "What?" The 100 Tribulations Insight Avatar crashed down like a great mountain. Boom! The earth trembled. It was as simple as killing an ant with a pinch. There was almost no resistance at all. In the blink of an eye, Luo Changfeng vanished into thin air, leaving nothing behind in the world. Lu Zhou glanced at the remaining time. There was still some time left. Anyhow, there was no need to pursue others. Even if he caught up with them, he could at most kill a few more people. However, once the experience card's effect disappeared, he would be in a pretty bad situation. After this incident, Lu Zhou realized the value of the experience card. It could make him reverse a bad situation, so he must not waste it easily. Utilizing the remaining time, he used the mighty divine ability again and returned to Golden Court Mountain. The orthodox cultivators had scattered and fled with their tails tucked between their legs. Meanwhile, the top 9 experts fled in 9 different directions to maximize their chances of survival. They were not that stupid. When they saw the 100 Tribulations Insight Avatar appear on the horizon again, they knew that something had happened to one of their companions. Nothing special happened for a long time after that. Ding! You've completed the prerequisite quest. The merit points are zeroed. The main quest is triggered. Tame the villainous disciples. He who teaches me for a day is my father for life. Those who betray their master are treacherous, and those who are disloyal are worse than pigs and dogs. Tame your disciples and increase their loyalty. Task number 1. Increase Xia Yuano's loyalty to more than 80%. Task number 2. Punish the 3 villainous disciples. This system is really too stingy. I've repelled tens of thousands of cultivators, and yet it didn't even reward me. It should at least give me a peak form experience card. How can it not give me anything? Tip number 1. Peak form experience card is a precious item provided due to the host's weak strength. Please use it carefully. Tip number 2. Please try your best to improve your strength. The time for the peak form experience card is over. With that, Lu Zhou felt all the energy in his body disappear instantly. It felt really good to be so formidable, and he wondered how long it would take him to reach the same realm if he were to cultivate on his own. Cards were always cards, and they did not really represent his strength. Without strength, he could not beat anyone except ordinary people. He could beat no one with this old body. When he saw his 3 wounded disciples and little Yuan kneel at the entrance, Lu Zhou calmed himself down. He must be poised and not fussy like a young man. That was too childish. Experienced and prudent? Lu Zhou thought of the words, so he put his hands behind his back and walked over. As for whether he should behave like Ji Tiandao from the past, he did not care anymore. He was already here, and there was no point in thinking too much. Lu Zhou stood in front of the 4 disciples as his eyes moved from Duamuxing to Mengshi and finally to Zhao Yu. Little Yuan. That made Duamuxing and the other 2 shivered with fear. Master! Little Yuan quickly answered. You may get up. Yes. Lu Zhou noticed that her loyalty had risen to 65% while Duamuxing, Mengshi and Zhao Yu's loyalty were at 30%, 20%, and 40% respectively, which had stopped declining and begun to rise. However, this level of loyalty was far from enough. He did not say anything else but told his 9th disciple, I'm tired. Assist me. Let's go back. Secretly feeling happy, little Yuan came to him with small steps and helped him up the mountain like an obedient little servant girl. As a result, Duamuxing and the other 2 disciples were left behind. Since the master did not say that they could get up, they naturally dared not to move. Moreover, as they were all wounded from their master's slap, they did not feel good right now. Old Fourth, you've left me in a dreadful situation, Duamuxing said with a wan look. How can you blame me? It was only after careful analysis that I was convinced that master was injured, said Mengshi. After careful analysis? Then you are really good at analysis, Zhao Yu complained as well. If it had not been for her 4th senior brother's change of attitude, she would not have joined in the rebellion. Who knew this would happen? I had calculated everything but just overlooked this one thing. What had you overlooked? Perhaps, maybe, probably, Master is really tired of playing with the old routine and wants to try something new. Duamuxing and Zhao Yu were speechless. Why don't we run away now? Zhao Yu whispered. Run away? How? Didn't you see Master show his mighty power? When Master pursued the top 10 experts just now, he seemed to have used his avatar 2 times, imperfect divine intervention 1 time, and soul chase 1 time. Junior sister's suggestion can be considered. Mengshi nodded slightly. Consider my ass. If Master really wanted to kill us, he would have done it. No matter what Mengshi said, Duamuxing dared not to believe him again. As the saying went, a fall into the pit, a gain in your wit. Since the master did not do anything to them, that meant they still had a chance to live. If they really ran away, they would be the same as their eldest senior brother and the others. Lu Zhou slowly sat down inside the gazebo. Despite everything that had just happened, he did not feel short of breath at all. After his cultivation base was restored to the 9th tier of body tempering, he had no problem in ascending and descending the mountain. Although his disciples could still sense something suspicious from his aura, they did not dare to doubt his cultivation base, and Mengshi even decided that he was playing a new routine with them. Little Yuan, how long have you joined the sect for? Asked Lu Zhou. I've been following Master for 5 years. 5 years? It took only 5 years for her to reach the divine court realm. What kind of heaven-defying monsters had Ji Tiandao taken in as disciples? Lu Zhou speculated that Ji Tiandao must have received some kind of help from the system before it was activated. Have you realized what you've done wrong? Lu Zhou said with mixed emotions. Little Yuan dropped to her knees at once and murmured, Master, I was wrong, I should have never listened to senior brothers. Master, you must believe me, I've always been very good and obedient. That's not what I'm referring to. Ah? At the end of last year, did you leave Golden Court Mountain without my permission and rob the cultivation books and records of 2 major sects? I'm sorry. Why did you do that? Lu Zhou searched for the memory in his mind, but he found no motive for little Yuan to do that. Little Yuan stuck out her tongue and said, 4th senior brother said that people whose names are not on the black roll are not worthy of being disciples of Golden Court Mountain. So I went. Black roll. Lu Zhou had no information about it either. It is a list prepared by the cultivation world, and the cultivators on the list are all evildoers. Senior brothers and sisters have all entered the top 30, and Master. Say it. Master, you are at the top of the list. Lu Zhou, eh? When little Yuan saw her master lost in thought, She did not dare to continue talking, but secretly observed. The change of atmosphere made her afraid to even breathe too loudly. After some time, Lu Zhou said, "Forget it. It is the fault of parents to feed and clothe their children without proper education, and it is the laziness of a teacher to just educate his students without being strict. I didn't teach you well." When she heard that, little Yuano secretly gave her master a complicated look. Although she had only joined the sect for a very short time, far shorter than the other senior brothers and sisters, she knew about the old man in front of her quite well. What was wrong with her master? Lu Zhou sensed her doubts and said, "Yuano, you are my favorite disciple. From now on, I want you to stop doing evil deeds. Can you do that?" "Yes, master." "Now get up." "Yes." Little Yuano was overjoyed at being forgiven. "Hee, master is the best? Let me massage your shoulders." Little Yuano hopped behind Lu Zhou like a rabbit. Lu Zhou sighed in his heart. Although Ji Tiandao had cultivated 8 villainous disciples, at least there was still one who had a conscience to be filial. If he had not arrived in time, he reckoned that this youngest disciple would soon turn evil as well. Peers could influence one's behavior in positive and negative ways. Although little Yuano was quick-witted and mischievous, her mind was simple and easily corrupted. Ding! You've completed a task. CI Yuano's loyalty has reached 80%. You are rewarded with 100 merit points. Lu Zhou glanced at little Yuana. Sure enough, her loyalty had reached 80%. He nodded with satisfaction and said, "Go get the 3 of them here." "Yes." Little Yuana ran down the mountain as quickly as a monkey. Lu Zhou was slightly relieved. System, are there better ways to punish villainous disciples? In his previous life, he was an executive of the company. Although he did not have Ji Tiandao's experience of living in the world for 1,000 years, he had his own opinions on training subordinates. He believed that the same was true when it came to teaching disciples. The more they were pressured, the more likely they were to bounce back. At the end of the day, the reason why these disciples were evil was all the result of Ji Tiandao's teachings, so it was Ji Tiandao whom they hated. Since Lu Zhou had replaced Ji Tiandao, he had to follow this road as well. Anyhow, the system did not answer. "Since you won't answer me, I'll do it according to my own ways," said Lu Zhou. After a while, Duamuxing, Mingxiyin, and Zhao Yu came up the mountain into the gazebo with their heads bowed and a little frightened, falling to their knees immediately. Meanwhile, little Yuano stood aside in silence. "Master, please spare my life. Master, please forgive me. Master, please spare my life." Their loyalty was 40%, 35%, and 42% respectively. The numbers were still very low. At this level of loyalty, they would fall to the other side easily with the slightest change. There was dead silence in the gazebo. No one dared to speak since Lu Zhou had not uttered a single word. At this moment, silence was better than verbal language. The silence made the 3 of them uneasy and gave them chills down their bones. A quarter of an hour passed and Lu Zhou still did not speak. He just sighed or shook his head from time to time. Finally, the 5th disciple, Zhao Yu, could no longer endure the bizarre atmosphere. She threw herself on the ground as she burst into tears and said, "Master, I was wrong. I got confused in that moment. Ever since I joined the sect, I've never thought of betraying Master. I beg your forgiveness, Master." Since someone had taken the lead, Duamuxing and Mingxiyin followed suit and begged for mercy. "Master, I've been in the sect for over 100 years. During all these years, I've really put in a lot of effort in everything I did. Considering I've followed Master for so long, I beg Master to spare my life. Master, I joined the sect 60 years ago, and I've never once disobeyed Master. It was only in my ignorance that I committed such grave disobedience. I beg Master to spare my life." Lu Zhou glanced at the 3 disciples again as he slowly rose to his feet. His slap had made them suffer too much, to the point that they even had trouble standing up. Little Yuano was thoughtful enough to run over and help him until he got his footing and then stepped aside. Lu Zhou stood with his hands clasped behind his back. Instead of looking at them, he walked to the edge of the gazebo and overlooked the mountains. A mist was rising in tendrils between the mountains, swirling about in the air. Golden Court Mountain, without its shield, looked somewhat mysterious. "Old Third." "Yes, Master." Duamuxing trembled as he bowed his head and answered, "What is your ranking on the black roll?" I'm at the 18th place." "What about Old Fourth?" I'm not as good as Senior Brother. I'm at the 25th place." Zhao Yu did not wait for her master to ask. "I'm lucky enough to be at the 28th place." "Lucky!" Lu Zhou's voice grew serious as he said, You are really my amazing disciple. Since when has it become something worth showing off to have your name on the black roll? You've disgraced me. I was wrong. Zhao Yu's heart trembled. Lu Zhou had just begun to lecture when he suddenly thought of what little Yuan had told him, that his name was at the top of the black roll. It seemed that he had disgraced himself the most. For a moment, he felt embarrassed, but then he threw that aside. Since you know you are wrong, you have to change, said Lu Zhou faintly. Change? How? The three disciples looked at each other. They thought they were on the same path as their master, and all their styles of doing things were also learned from their master. No evil shall be done henceforth. Can you do that? Lu Zhou said word by word. The trio paused. They gave their master a somewhat incomprehensible look, but then they replied in unison, this disciple will obey master's order. A heavy silence fell upon the gazebo once again. After some time, as Lu Zhou looked at the scenery in the distance, he sighed and said, one thing I've done wrong in my life is that I've only taught you how to cultivate but not how to conduct yourself. I was wrong, too, and because of that, I've produced a bunch of treacherous disciples like you. Without commenting on what they had done in the cultivation world, just the fact that they disobeyed their master and harbored the intention of betraying the sect was enough to mark them treacherous. The four disciples did not dare to make a sound. Who dared to say the master was wrong? Duamusheng, Mingshi. Yes, master. Both disciples answered at the same time. The shield of Golden Court Mountain is broken now. Your punishment is to guard the mountain while the shield is being repaired, and you are not to leave without my permission. When the repair is done, I'll forgive you, said Lu Zhou faintly. It was equivalent to restricting their freedom. Repairing the shield was not a simple task, and it would take at least 8 to 10 years to be completed. It was a reasonable punishment, which was far better than killing them. Both men were overjoyed. This disciple will obey master's order. Lu Zhou's eyes fell on his fifth disciple. Zhao Yu. Yes, master. Your third and fourth senior brothers need to stay on the mountain, so I punish you to atone for your crimes down the mountain. Do you have any objection? Atone for her crimes? Zhao Yu threw herself on the ground and said in a low voice, this disciple will obey master's order and dare not to have any objection. But, say it. What crimes do I have to atone for? Lu Zhou shook his head. These villainous disciples had followed Ji Tiandao for so many years that their view of life and values had been completely corrupted by him, and they had lost their basic ability to judge right and wrong. He did not speak immediately but turned around and walked past them. Although he was without any aura or energy fluctuation, he still made the three disciples shudder. Yuan, tell me, what is good and what is evil? Lu Zhou asked indifferently. That gave little Yuan a pause, and then she cupped her fist and said, helping people is good and harming people is evil? It was an answer that she came up with on the spur of the moment, and she never thought it was correct. Lu Zhou shook his head when he heard the answer. What do you think, old third? With his head bowed, Duamusheng said, doing charitable deeds is good, while it is evil to kill and burn and plunder? Lu Zhou shook his head again. Old fourth. To serve the country and the people is good, and to help the villains do bad things is evil. That was Mingshi Yin's answer. Lu Zhou still shook his head. Their answers were too superficial and not what he wanted. The four disciples looked on with puzzled faces as their master kept shaking his head. With his hands clasped behind his back, Lu Zhou said, in life, one does not have to do good deeds or serve the country and the people, one can never please everyone. But one should not have any guilt in the heart. The four of them looked up slightly at their master with complicated eyes. They suddenly felt that their master was very different from before. A month ago, he was telling them to kill anyone whom they did not find pleasing to the eyes. But now he was making such thoughtful remarks. It was hard for them to not be surprised. One should not have any guilt in the heart. I understand now. I'll definitely kill all those fanatics who had insulted master. Zhao Yu gritted her teeth and said. It seemed that he had said so much for nothing. Lu Zhou did not know whether to laugh or cry. Never mind. I think it is better for you to stay on the mountain and be punished together with the others. Lu Zhou shook his head. Zhao Yu froze, and then she said, this disciple will obey master's order. After all, these three disciples had followed Ji Tiandao for too long. Their view of life and values had been deeply rooted, which could not be modified by him with just a few words. She was too murderous, and it would be a terribly bad idea to let her leave the mountain. At present, Lu Zhou's cultivation base was very weak, so the crisis was still there. Moreover, those villainous disciples who had betrayed the sect were all eyeing him. Lu Zhou glanced at them once again. Their loyalty had increased to 50%, 45%, and 52% respectively. These 3 villainous disciples were really stubborn. The problem of good and evil could not be solved in a short time, but their loyalty must be increased to over 60%. It seemed that the punishment of making them stay on the mountain was not enough. Lujo slowly turned around and walked back into the gazebo before sitting down cross-legged. From today on, no matter what you've done in the past, I can let bygones be bygones. But if you do it again, if you are unfaithful and commit treason, I'll not spare you easily. This time, even little Yuana fell to her knees as well, and the 4 of them kept promising that they would not do that again. Sure enough, the loyalty of the 3 villainous disciples increased by 5%. After the stick, he showed them the carrot by saying, "Since you have joined Golden Court Mountain and become my disciples, I'll naturally protect you all." Their loyalty increased by another 10% while little Yuano's increased by 2%. Lujo nodded in his heart. The idea of protection had improved their loyalty a lot. The world was vast and full of wonders. Although there were many famous orthodox sects, there were also many hypocritical and treacherous people. In this competitive and ruthless world, people were not afraid of true villains, but of fake good men. The cultivation world was grotesque and diversified, full of intrigues. It was a blessing in life to have a roof over one's head. In fact, it was exactly the same idea they had when they came here to acknowledge him as their master. Ding! You've completed the task of punishing the 3 villainous disciples. You are rewarded with 100 reward points. He heard the system prompt. Leave. Lujo said in a faint voice. Yes, master. The 4 disciples left the gazebo. Although their hearts were uneasy, they felt more surprised and puzzled, especially the 3 villainous disciples. They had committed treason, but their master only grounded them in Golden Court Mountain. It was no different from a great favor. If it had been before, there would have been a brutal beating and serious injury. When all his disciples had left, Lujo breathed a sigh of relief and opened up the personal menu. Name, Lujo. Race, human. Cultivation base, the 9th tier of body tempering. Avatar, none. Merit points, 200. Remaining life, 321 days. Items, Jitiandao Peak Form Card X2, Critical Block Card, Passive X5. Cultivation techniques, none. He was extremely weak. It was only after experiencing the peak form that Lujo realized how weak this body was. When he saw that he had 200 merit points, he said, a lucky draw. Ding! Each lucky draw consumes 50 merit points, and if the lucky draw fails, you will get 1 luck point. That's a ripoff. Shopping mall. The interface in his eyes changed. The shopping mall was full of various weapons and cultivation techniques. You can even buy avatars? Lujo was rendered speechless. An avatar was one of the strongest skills of cultivators. When cultivators cultivated to a certain realm, they would condense their divine senses into huge avatars. The stronger the cultivators, the stronger their avatars. Unfortunately, most of the items were red and could not be purchased. An apprentice rank avatar, basic Taiji, costs 300 merit points. A 2 transformed powers avatar costs 1000 merit points. Lujo noticed that the price for the highest level avatar, Myriad Supreme, was simply a row of question marks. After glancing through them, Lujo felt that he was going to faint. He could not even afford the cheapest apprentice rank avatar. They were all terribly expensive. Although an avatar was one of the most powerful skills of cultivators, it also represented the bottleneck of a cultivator. Often, many cultivators were trapped in a certain realm, even for a lifetime, because the level of their avatars could not be improved. What does it mean by not showing the cost? Lujo murmured curiously. Myriad Supreme was an avatar that only existed in the legends. In today's cultivation world, even an old villain as mighty as Jitiandao only had an 8-leaf 100 tribulations insight avatar. Yes, it did show signs of breaking through to a 9-leaf 100 tribulations insight, but it was still far from becoming a 1,000 realms whirling avatar. Well, I'd better not think so far ahead. I need to get my attitude right. Since his cultivation base had reduced to the 9th tier of body tempering, he had to change his attitude to that of a weakling. He could not hope to reach for what was beyond his grasp. Let's try the lucky draw, Lujo said. Ding! The lucky draw begins. Ding! The lucky draw costs 50 merit points. You've received a reversal card. Would you like to continue the lucky draw? Oh, such a high winning rate? I can't believe it actually didn't just give me a thank you, please try again next time prompt. Lujo was a little surprised. I still have 150 merit points. Well, I'd better keep the points until I have enough to buy an avatar to improve my cultivation level. According to the normal cultivation process, he should first break through the bottleneck of the body tempering realm and enter the mystic enlightening realm before he could master the use of an apprentice rank avatar. But since he could buy avatars in the system, that meant there was no bottleneck. Show me the quests. Current main quest, Taming Villainous Disciples. He who teaches me for a day is my father for life. Those who betray their master are treacherous, and those who are disloyal are worse than pigs and dogs. Tame your disciples and increase their loyalty. Side quest number 1, increase Ci Yuano's loyalty, completed. Side quest number 2, punish the 3 villainous disciples, completed. Side quest number 3, taming Zhu Honggong, in progress. Side quest number 4, evil must be completely eradicated. Change the situation, in progress. When he saw that the quest interface had refreshed, Lu Zhou sighed. To tame the 8th disciple means that I have to find him. With my current cultivation base, this is no different from digging my own grave, Lu Zhou said to himself. I must consider things carefully and not act too rashly. He thought of the 3 villainous disciples. Even if he did not ground them, it would be a risk to keep them so close to him. After all, the truth would come to light sooner or later. Only little Yuana was the most reliable. Her cultivation base was at the Divine Court realm, her loyalty was the highest, and she was the youngest. So, she was the most suitable disciple to keep beside him, and he could also teach her the truth of life, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. When he thought of that, Lu Zhou slowly got up and returned to the Evil Sky Pavilion. I still have a reversal card. I have to use it before anything else. The Evil Sky Pavilion was the residence of Ji Tiandao and his disciples on Golden Court Mountain. It was situated at the top of the mountain, a quiet and serene place. 3 days later, at the headquarters of the Tiger Ridge Gang. How's the investigation going? I had sent men to rush to the Golden Court Mountain with a flying chariot. The battle there was intense, so our men did not dare to get too close. But some cultivators told them that they saw an avatar with their own eyes. An avatar? What kind of avatar was it? The avatar was 100 feet tall and 20 feet wide, surrounded by golden light and had an 8-leaf golden lotus under it. Plop! Zhu Honggong fell from his throne. His air of a powerful lord was gone and his face had turned extremely unsightly while his legs were shaking. The person who had an avatar that was 100 feet tall near Golden Court Mountain could only be his master. After 100 tribulations, inside avatar was condensed, it would grow 10 feet taller with every additional leaf it produced. Zhu Honggong was shaking all over. It is really master, what should I do? What should I do? Inside the Evil Sky Pavilion, Lu Zhou used the reversal card, restoring his remaining life to 613 days. After a few days of rest, he had become more energetic. This card only gives me 300 days of life, which is not as good as the first one, Lu Zhou murmured to himself. He had become a little younger again. In terms of appearance, he had not changed much except that he had a few more black hair and looked more energetic. I still have 150 merit points, so miserably few. Lu Zhou did not practice all the messy cultivation techniques in his mind, including those taught to his disciples. Instead, he planned to redeem new cultivation techniques from the shopping mall. He did not want to repeat Ji Tiandao's mistakes. While a man's good and evil should not be judged by others, it must be Ji Tiandao's character and the way he treated others that had reduced him to such a state, where even his disciples had rebelled against him. And the degree to which a man could do evil was inextricably linked to the cultivation techniques he had practiced. Just as he was deep in thought, a voice came from outside the door. Master, little Yuana wishes to see you. Come in. Little Yuana pushed open the door and walked in with tiny steps. When she saw her master sitting cross-legged on the ground, she chuckled and said, Master, you are getting younger again. Sweet talk, Lu Zhou raised a hand and gently knocked her on the head. Master, you are really amazing. Am I? You are the only one in today's world who can force back the top 10 experts on your own, little Yuana said admiringly. Lu Zhou did not say anything. He did that with the experience card, so it was not worth mentioning. Little Yuana blinked her big eyes and said again, Master, you had told me before that we can kill anyone we want as long as we are strong enough. But why didn't you kill senior brothers and sister? Lu Zhou's eyes fell on little Yuana. He did not expect this little girl to have such dangerous thoughts. Yuan. Yes, master. You must forget all the truth and words I have told you before. Oh, I will. Lu Zhou noticed a hesitant look on her face. While shaking his head, he said, "Just say what you have to say. I won't blame you." "Master, you once promised me one thing. Do I have to forget it as well?" Little Yuano summoned up her courage and asked, "What did the old villain promise her before?" Lu Zhou quickly searched his memory, but he could not find any relevant information. It seemed that after he had traveled into this old villain's body, much of the memory was lost. "What did I promise you?" Lu Zhou was puzzled. "Master, you said that as long as I can reach the divine court realm, you will give the jade horsetail whisk." Although Lu Zhou did not remember anything about the promise, he knew the jade horsetail whisk. It was a heaven-grade treasure that could greatly increase a cultivator's power. However, after Lu Zhou traveled into Ji Tiandao's body, all his items had disappeared. How was he going to give it to her? He also understood why the old villain did that. The betrayal of his disciples had challenged his authority. If he did not weaken his disciples, everyone would betray him sooner or later. It was a helpless move. But words uttered were like spilled water after all. "Of course you have to forget that as well." Little Yuano was disappointed. Lu Zhou went on, "But I will give you another heaven-grade treasure. Horsetail whisks are usually used by elderly cultivators, and it doesn't look nice when used by a little girl like you." Little Yuano was overjoyed when she heard that, and she quickly bowed and said, "Thank you, master." Lu Zhou nodded slightly and said, "I have a task for you." "I'm at your service, master." "There are still some orthodox cultivators secretly watching us around Golden Court Mountain. I want you to settle them." "I'll complete the task. Go now." The moment she left Evil Sky Pavilion, she drifted down the mountain swiftly and gracefully like a swallow. About 10 minutes later, Lu Zhou heard the system prompt. "You've killed a villain and received 10 merit points." "You've killed a villain and received 10 merit points." Lu Zhou paused for a moment and then nodded with satisfaction. Disciples could complete quests as well, and the master could get merit points from the disciples. It was very reasonable, very nice. Within an hour, little Yuano actually killed a dozen bold cultivators. At that moment, Lu Zhou called up the menu and glanced at it. The merit points had accumulated to 300. Shopping mall. Purchased an apprentice rank Taiji avatar. Ding! You've received an apprentice rank Taiji avatar. The moment he received the avatar, Lu Zhou felt spring water rush out of his dried-up dantian as streams of power flowed throughout his whole body. He had broken through. He had stepped into the mystic enlightening realm from the body-tempering realm. The body-tempering realm only trained tendons, bones, and skin after all, so those in this realm could not use energy like cultivators. But when a person became a cultivator, his ability was multiplied. Sure enough, there is no bottleneck. Lu Zhou felt the changes in his body. After a short moment, the activities within him quieted down. Name, Lu Zhou. Race, human. Cultivation base, mystic enlightening realm, heart aperture. Merit points, 0. Remaining life, 613 days. Items, Jitiandao Peak Form Card X2, Critical Block Card, Passive X5. A 2 Transform Powers avatar cost 1,000 merit points. It was a huge ripoff. It seemed that it was not as easy as he had imagined if he wished to reach the same height as Ji Tiandao. Besides, there was no suitable cultivation technique he could practice for the time being. Should I practice the old cultivation techniques? In Lu Zhou's mind, there were indeed many cultivation methods and experiences related to Ji Tiandao, the cultivation methods of his 9 disciples, as well as their advantages and disadvantages. However, those cultivation techniques were tailored for them and not suitable for him. As for Ji Tiandao's own cultivation technique, it seemed that it became stagnant after practicing because of his aging body. It meant that he had to further prolong his life before he could consider continuing with it. Before that, he would rather not practice any cultivation technique than practice a bad one. He could wait anyway. By now his merit points seemed to have stopped increasing. Little Yuana's cultivation base is at the Divine Court realm, so it is very easy for her to deal with these small fish and shrimps. I have to give them more work. Since the disciples could help him get merit points, he had to make good use of them. Lu Zhou slowly stood up and flexed his body. As he was about to step out of the door, a shadow suddenly rushed toward him. Swoosh! Like a bolt of lightning, the shadow broke in from the window on the west side of the pavilion with a glinting short sword in hand. With Lu Zhou's current strength, he could tell at one glance that the attacker was an expert. There was a great amount of energy on the edge of the sword as it went right to his heart. Should I shout for help? Bam! The sword was stabbed on Lu Zhou's chest. Yet, he was unhurt. A critical block card was finally triggered. It was also at this moment that Lu Zhou saw the attacker's appearance. The eldest disciple of Heavenly Sword sect Zhou Jifeng? Lu Zhou said in surprise. Zhou Jifeng never thought that he would be recognized at a glance. In his panic, he pulled back the sword and leaped backward before thrusting the sword again. Lu Zhou frowned slightly. The mystic and lightning realm was, after all, the most useless realm in the cultivation world. There was no way he could resist Zhou Jifeng, who had stepped into the divine court realm. He was just like meat on someone's chopping block. This Zhou Jifeng was obviously here to seek revenge. He was a bold fanatic who did not care for his own life. Bam! It was another fatal blow. But the sword was knocked away by Lu Zhou's bizarre block once again. Zhou Jifeng rolled backward in the air and felt a numbness in his arm. How was that possible? The evil sky pavilion fell silent. Zhou Jifeng swallowed hard as his eyes went wide and were shot with blood. The sword in his hand trembled slightly, and he did not know whether he should continue attacking or not. Do you want to continue? Lu Zhou's eyes gleamed like torches. Strength ran out of Zhou Jifeng's legs and he fell back on his buttocks. The gap between them was too tremendous, so much so that he had completely given up the thought of attacking. You've overestimated yourself, Lu Zhou snorted and slowly turned around. Calm down. I can't let him see my weakness. You killed my master. I will avenge him even if the cost is my life. Zhou Jifeng clenched the sword tightly. You are wasting your time. Zhou Jifeng rushed forward with his sword again, moving as fast as a gust of wind. An expert in the divine court realm was incomparable with any ordinary cultivator. At this critical moment, Master! A blue figure flashed in from outside. Meanwhile, Zhou Jifeng's heart trembled and his movement slowed down. Bam! The blue figure threw out a beam of energy and knocked him flying away. As a result, Zhou Jifeng coughed out a mouthful of blood and fell on the ground. How dare you sneak attack my master? Are you blind? Little Yuan landed, showing her teeth with a murderous smile on her face. Stand down, Yuan. Master, he attacked you. I want to cut him into pieces to help you vent your anger. When Zhou Jifeng heard that, his face turned pale as a sheet. Sure enough, the 9 disciples of Evil Sky Pavilion were all extremely ferocious. What he knew about them came from rumors, which were full of exaggeration and falsehood after all. But he found that the rumors were quite true when he saw it with his own eyes today, because even this cute-looking little girl was so scary. Zhou Jifeng was a little regretful about coming here to get his revenge. Meanwhile, Lu Zhou was poised on the surface, but he kept sighing in his heart. This old body is really weak. When he was in the peak form, he did not even pay attention to someone like Zhou Jifeng. But just now he was nearly killed by this guy. Fortunately, his little disciple arrived in time. Otherwise, his 5 critical block cards would not last him for too long and he would have to waste another peak form experience card. Lu Zhou was not surprised that Zhou Jifeng, with his cultivation base of the divine court realm, could sneak up the mountain since the shield was not yet repaired and his few disciples' attention was somewhere else. He just did not expect that the other would be so bold as to sneak attack him. His eyes fell on Zhou Jifeng. Name, Zhou Jifeng. Race, human. Cultivation base. Early Dao shaping stage of the divine court realm. Status, enemy, hostility level 85%. I killed your master, and it is reasonable for you to come to me for revenge. However, you have overestimated yourself, and this is no different from committing suicide. There is no point in doing so. Lu Zhou sat down slowly, searching his mind for memories related to the kid. It happened that Tiandao did cross paths with the latter in the past. You began to temper your body when you were 8 years old, stepped into the mystic and lightning realm at the age of 9, sense condensing realm at 13, Brahma Sea realm at 18, and divine court realm at 20. This made you a rare genius even in the cultivation world. You could totally wait for a few more years before you came to me for revenge. Why must you come to get yourself killed now? Zhou Jifeng really regretted it. He was a genius known to the whole Heavenly Sword sect. Meanwhile, little Yuan mumbled, Master, you call this a rare genius? When I was 10 years old, I acknowledged you as my master and I'm 15 years old this year, but I have already stepped into the divine court realm. Lu Zhou, When Zhou Jifeng heard that, the little bit of pride he had just now vanished in an instant. Don't interrupt. Lu Zhou glared at her. Little Yuan stuck out her tongue and stepped to the side. Then, Lu Zhou continued, Zhou Jifeng, do you know why I didn't kill you? Old villain, you don't have to be hypocritical. Whether you want to kill or torture me, do it now. Zhou Jifeng put on a brave face. Lu Zhou shook his head. You really think Luo Changfeng is a gentleman? What do you mean? Zhou Jifeng's glared at him. What an ignorant young man. You weren't even born when I met Luo Changfeng. What are you trying to say? If I told you that the person who killed your father was Luo Changfeng, would you believe it? Ding! A hidden side quest is triggered. Instigate Zhou Jifeng's defection. Hint. Everything you do has the potential to trigger hidden quests.